Today on the podcast, I'm going to introduce you to a very special lady, Marlene Read, my wife's grandmother, who just turned 90 years old last week. My wife, Brittany Millsap, is joining me as a co-host on the podcast today, exploring some of Marlene's stories. This is a woman who was 7 years old when Pearl Harbor was attacked. She was 29 when JFK was killed, 35 when the United States walked on the moon, 38 when Nixon was impeached, 40 when Reagan was elected president. When she was 52, the Challenger exploded on the way to space. When she was 60, Bob Kraft bought the Patriots. She was 80 years old when Robin Williams died in 2014. And today, in 2024, she's 90 years old. Please welcome the beautiful and delightful Marlene Read. Marlene, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Marlene is my wife, Brittany's grandmother. She was a McElhaney and then became a Read. My wife, Brittany, was a McElhaney and then became a Millsap. And Brittany is joining us today on the podcast as well. Brittany, welcome.
Thank you.
So you're born in 1934.
Yes.
What are some of your earliest memories?
Well, some of the stuff my parents told me. I was born at Langley Field, Virginia, and my father was one of the first people on the base when it was all dirt roads and all that stuff. And when I was born there at that hospital, it was a new hospital then. And we lived on the flight line, and I remember the Second World War.
I was going to say, do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do.
Tell me what you remember about that day.
I just remember hearing the President Roosevelt. I remember that, and I also remember we had blackouts on the base and sirens, and we had a big wooden box that had a bunch of rations and stuff in it, for emergencies.
You would have been 7 when the war started, and about 12 when the war ended.
My brother was also killed in the Second World War.
How old was he?
He was graduated from high school, went to Syracuse University, and then when he went on training in Georgia, he was killed.
So he was 11 years older than you? Is that about right?
Yeah, I was the baby.
How many brothers and sisters
I
did you
had
have?
one brother and one sister. She was the oldest.
And how much older was she?
Let's see, she was probably 12 or 15 years. I was an accident.
Surprise.
How old were your parents when you were born?
My mother was 39.
Oh, that was...
Yeah, that's why I said I was an accident.
Yeah, that was old back in the back in the 30s.
Right.
So then when you're raised as the youngest with that big a gap, did it feel a little bit like being an only child?
No,
No?
because I enjoyed all my sisters and brothers' friends, and they remember me as a little brat. In fact, we had a reunion. I guess it's been like 10 years ago, Langley Field kids, and some of my brothers and sisters' friends were there. My sister came, and she went with me, and they remember me as a little brat.
So now your dad was in the military.
Yes, he lied about his age. He went in the military. He was General Pershing's aide, and he used to tell me about Pancho Villa. And let's see, then he went to Langley.
He's still in the military at Langley.
Yeah, still in the military.
Was he? How long was he? Like a career military guy?
Yes, mm-hmm. He retired as lieutenant colonel.
Mm-hmm.
But tell him how he got into the military.
Well, I did. He lied about his age.
Oh, yeah. And he shares a birthday with Gunner.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
January 18th.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Incredible.
And also my other granddaughter, Jordan. She was born on his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
3 family members with all the same birthday. That's pretty amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool. So then when did he retire from the military?
Let's see. After probably, I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth, probably in the 40s.
Late 40s, like after World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
And did you guys leave the base?
Well, we had to leave the base right after the war. Mm-hmm. And before the war was over, because he went to New York
with the military.
Yeah, and then so we moved off base then, and then he retired, and we stayed in Hampton, Virginia,
And then what did he do after he retired or from the military?
He went to the NCO club and managed that for them. And then he stopped that.
But as a civilian?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're 12 years old. The war ends. Your dad retires from the military. You moved to Hampton, Virginia.
Well, we were in Hampton.
You were already in Hampton.
Yeah.
So you were living in Hampton. You weren't living on Langley Base.
Not at that point, no.
Got it. Okay, so you're back at Hampton. And so you went to high school in Hampton.
Yes.
And now it's the late 40s, right? You went to high school in about 48.
I graduated in 52 from Hampton High School.
There you go, 1952. So what was it like to be in high school post-World War II, Hampton, Virginia?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Nothing like it is now. I mean, we didn't have all this harassing and stuff like that. You know, when I was in elementary school, I had long braids. They used to tie me to the back of my desk. I thought it was funny. I didn't think I was being bullied.
So what were some of the highlights? I mean, this is the early 50s, right? You're a junior in high school when the 50s begin.
All right.
Really, I guess you're a sophomore in high school in 1950, graduate in 1952. 52. What kind of, has 50s music arrived, or so are you still dancing to 40s music?
Oh, yeah. I took dance lessons, so I love dancing. And we always had dances after our football games on Friday, and we all danced. It was just great times then.
What kind of dances were you doing?
Jitterbug and just regular ballroom dancing.
How would people dress for dances back then? What would the guys wear? What would the girls wear?
Well, the girls wore bobby socks and skirts and sweaters, no slacks then. And the guys just wore khakis and sweaters.
Khakis and sweaters, not blazers.
No.
More sweaters.
Right.
And what kind of other activities did you like to do in high school? Well,
I was on the newspaper. I had my own column on our newspaper, Crabber Highlight. Mine was called Crabber Chatter.
And so was it a gossip column?
Kind of.
What kind of things did you write about?
The couples, who was seen with who and all that kind of stuff. And then a movie came to Fort Eustis. That was a transportation place, Fort Eustis, Virginia. And it starred Hugh O'Brian and Jeff Chandler. I think the name of it was Red Ball Express. And so I contacted them and got them to come to a football game.
This movie that was being made called The Red Ball Express, and you got them to come to a football game to film, or
no,
just to come?
To come because they invited me to Fort Eustis. Went to Fort Eustis on the lot, ate at the commissary with them, watched them film it.
Wait, why? How did you get to know these people?
Just by being a reporter.
You found out that they were in town, and you went and found them.
Yeah, I found them. Yeah, and they agreed.
Good for you.
They agreed that I could come out there and interview him and all for the newspaper. And then they had a cast party. I was invited to that, but I wasn't allowed to go because I was too young.
Because you were 15, 16?
16.
16 years old?
16, 17.
Yeah, 16 years old is no place for a...
No, now, well, then probably not quite as bad as now, but I'm sure,
Listen, even back then,
I know.
Yeah. These guys making film on the road.
Yeah, and so then we had a football game, and when they came to the football game, I got to sit with them, and it was a big article in the newspaper about it. It was just people were just coming out of the stands to meet them and all that stuff. It was great.
Who were these celebrities?
You never heard of Jeff Chandler?
Jeff Chandler? No, I have no idea.
Well, he played in Indian movies like Apache and stuff like that. And Hugh O'Brian had his own TV show. I think it was called The Sheriff or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they were big stars.
So they were big stars in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. And it was amazing how they would have, not maybe a couple of rows of troops and use all those mirrors to make it look like thousands. It was really interesting.
Well, he looks like quite a handsome guy. Britt's pulled him up on.
Yeah, he was. Mm-hmm.
That's Jeff Chandler?
Yeah, that's Jeff Chandler.
And he was the star.
Mm-hmm. And Hugh O'Brian was co-star. I don't remember who the female star was.
What's Hugh O'Brian look like?
Let's see.
You're looking him up.
Hugh O'Brian.
He wasn't bad looking either. Had his own TV show.
Yeah.
Oh, these are handsome guys.
Yeah. So what was the name of his TV show?
This is old school Hollywood.
The Western one?
Yeah.
The Western.
I think it was a sheriff.
It just
Something about the
says...
sheriff.
A Western television series, The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp.
Oh, yeah, Wyatt Earp. Why did I think of that? That's right, Wyatt Earp. You know who that is, right?
I know who Wyatt Earp is.
Okay.
But, I mean, these guys were handsome, old school Hollywood stars.
Right.
And they came to a high school football game in Hampton.
Red Ball Express.
And they made the Red Ball Express in Virginia.
At Fort Eustis.
I love this. Okay, so you graduate from Hampton High School. Did you go to college?
I went to William and Mary.
Oh, great school.
And I was co-captain of the fencing team.
Really? Had you
I
ever
didn't even know
fenced
that.
before?
No, but I tried tennis, and she said, "You're terrible at tennis." Then I tried hockey. Didn't like that. So fencing was my thing. I loved it.
You loved it?
Yes.
What do you remember, like, how did it click that fencing was something you're like, I really like this?
I don't even know why I chose it, because I didn't like the others. I had to take something, so I took that.
Did you have great feet? Right? Because it's kind of, fencing's a little bit like dancing.
Well, yeah, it is kind of, yeah. And we traveled, went to Goucher University and all these different places. It was fun.
To compete against these other universities. Do you think fencing, I don't know anything about fencing. Is fencing more feet or more hands? What's more important, good feet or good hands?
Probably both, because you use your wrist a lot. In fact, I was showing some of the great-grandchildren. They were acting up with swords and all, and I was showing them how to lunge and do all that stuff.
When was the last time do you think you had a fencing sword in your hand?
Back in the 50s.
Back in the 50s. Yeah. You didn't keep it up. You didn't continue to fence.
I mean, no. In fact, one of my granddaughters, she was surprised they had women's fencing. She said, "Did they have men's?" I don't remember having men's. I just remember the women's fencing team.
What did you study in college? What was your major?
Criminology.
Criminology? I
didn't like it. They told me I had to go to state prison. I didn't want to go, so I dropped it. So I was political science.
Political science. Political science makes more sense to me at William and Mary in the 50s. I mean, criminology would have been something I think new, right? A more practical version of some subset of political science.
But at first, when I was younger, I wanted to be a mortician.
What would inspire you to want to be a mortician?
Because I heard my sister wanted to be one, I think, and I thought that sounded exciting. Then I wanted to be a sociologist. Didn't do that either. Ended up just, getting married.
So you got out of college. Did you get married right away?
Yeah, I did. I only went 2 years.
Only 2 years?
Yeah, I got married.
And then you got married when you were 20?
Yeah.
And was this the McElhaney marriage?
That was the McElhaney marriage, yeah. That lasted 10 years.
For 10 years. How many? So then when was the first of your children born?
My daughter, Debbie, was born in, 55.
She was born in 55.
Mm-hmm. And then my son was born 4 years later.
And that's Brittany's father.
Dad, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In fact, I just lost my daughter the 30th of December this year.
Which was a terrible time for the family.
Absolutely.
She had how many years she'd been battling cancer?
Well, 20 years ago she had it and it came back.
Oh, so she had it young.
Yeah, so the last 5 years she's been battling all
again
through her body. Yeah. But she was a great inspiration to people. I mean, people would come to my house looking for her. She just had the best attitude.
Well, this is a difficult question, but I think one that is interesting to people. It's got to be very difficult as a parent to have to watch your kid go through that.
Yes, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm 90. This ought to be me, not my daughter.
Right. Yeah. It's not the natural order.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yep. But, God has a purpose. So I haven't figured out what mine is yet, but, pretty soon I better be doing it.
Well, maybe it's just to be a great grandmother because you're doing that.
Oh, listen, I have so many great grandchildren.
Yeah. So now, you have 2 children, and then now how many grandchildren do you have, and how many great grandchildren?
Okay, I have 5 grandchildren. I think I've miscounted. I think I have 21 great grandchildren.
Well, because your second marriage.
Yeah,
he had 2 kids, so she's counting.
He had 3
kids.
children. Yeah, so I'm counting all them. Yours.
So when you got married, the second time, you had 2 children, And he already had 3 children. Is that right? How old were the children when you guys got married?
My children were up and married because I had an aunt that told him, don't marry me until my children were out of the house. And I think that was kind of good advice, you know?
Wait, you had an aunt who knew your boyfriend?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And was he your boyfriend for a long time?
We went together like 13 years.
Oh, 13 years.
He was her
That
neighbor.
was my neighbor.
And so was it known that you guys were dating, or was it like a secret?
I'm not sure because his wife was in the junior women's club with me.
Yeah.
I was the junior women's club and she was their sponsor. And I didn't even know him, and we were doing a minstrel together, the Lions Club and the Junior Women's Club, and that's when I met him. And then they had bought a house somewhere else or a property, and then she found out there was property where I was living. I mean, on that street, it's a private lane, so they bought that. So I think this was a marriage made in heaven, because I raked the yard, he raked the yard. We worked outside together. He loved my children.
But he when he moved in,
he was 16 years older than me.
But when he moved in, did he have a wife?
Yeah.
And then
and we were friends.
Right, you were friends. But what I'm saying is, did you have an affair with this guy while he was married?
Well, he used to come. I worked at downtown Newport News, and he would come on his lunchtime. And she told my mother, because my mother lived with me part-time, and she told my mother she didn't want a husband. She wanted a companion or a friend, an escort. That's what it was. So she kind of threw us together. But
the wife did?
Yeah, I never thought about it. You know, we were just good friends.
So the wife wanted you to start dating her husband.
Well, she didn't say that,
but she was open to it. She wasn't opposed to it.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know. So how long did it go on? How long did you date?
Well, he finally moved out.
Okay. Okay. So then
that's when we started.
Got it. Like actually dating.
Right.
So how many years were secretly dating and how many years were actually dating before you got married?
I don't call secret. We didn't secretly date, really, because like he came on his lunch hour and I'd be on my lunch hour or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, or meet him for breakfast or something.
What I mean is, how many years did you guys date while he lived next door, and how many years did you date when he moved out before you got married?
Altogether, it was like 13 years.
13 years.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then what happened to his first wife? Where did she?
She remarried before we did.
She did.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Yep. So
she passed away a couple of years ago, and before that, we were at my present husband's, her ex-husband's. One of the children had a big party in the summertime, and we were all there. And she told me she was so glad that her children had my children, and they're close today.
So you guys all stayed pretty tight.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm still, and with my first husband's sisters-in-law family, I participate in a lot of stuff. We're all still friends.
I think I met them at your birthday last week.
You did. You met Barbara.
Yeah. So that was your first
husband's sister.
First husband's sister.
And the other sister passed away. And then the other sister is sick now. She has heart problems.
But the family, despite family complication.
I didn't divorce the family.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Some people don't feel that way.
Oh, I know.
But it's healthier, I think.
And my in-laws, I love my in-laws. They love me. They lived on the other side of me. In fact, my father-in-law bought the property, and we built the house on part of his property. Mm-hmm. And the day that he passed away, we were all at the hospital, and I was divorced then. No, I wasn't divorced then. Sorry. But anyway, he called. My mother-in-law left. The nurse came and got me, and he wanted to talk to me. And I understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. He was an alcoholic, my husband, first husband.
First husband.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's rough.
And my mother-in-law, my second marriage, we had her Christmas Eve, and we were just all family still.
Just stayed tight.
Yes.
And he stayed friends with his second wife, June.
Oh yeah. His second wife she just passed away. Last month?
This is your first husband's second wife.
Yes.
And you guys stayed friends.
Yes. Well, I didn't know her. I mean, I didn't know who she
They
was.
became friends.
You became
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
she would come to visit my daughter next door. And of course, that was her stepmother. And we just talked, and we'd go out. Well, I'd take her places if she needed to go. And then she had a daughter, and they stayed with me. She and her husband stayed with me, and we're still tight. And her daughter called my daughter, her stepsister, I guess about a month or so ago, and said, Mom said that I had him the best year, that his best years. And my daughter said, oh, no, she didn't. So when they were here for my birthday and for the funeral, we were talking, and I said, if we'd had that other bottle of plum wine, we might have discussed what happened between us, because I had no idea. I mean, I knew what I went through, but I didn't know she was going through it.
Did she go through some? I mean, so your first marriage, he was an alcoholic, and he wasn't a kind drunk.
No. He didn't work. He didn't like to work.
Yeah. Well, and
couldn't work.
he was not. He
was very personable. Very personable.
But he wasn't gentle when he was drunk.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But then, how was he in his second marriage? Did he get sober, or
evidently not?
Evidently not.
I didn't know that. Evidently not. That's why she thought I had the best years. But see, I thought, well, maybe he's found the one he's going. I think he liked the idea that I was a colonel's daughter.
He
really.
did?
Yeah, I think that was part of it.
So you think he liked the idea of you more than he loved you as a person?
Well, when I went to get my engagement ring after we graduated from high school, guess who paid for it? He borrowed money from me.
He borrowed money from you to buy the engagement ring?
Yeah. Did that not tell me something? No.
Yeah. Well, it's when you're getting married. How old was he? You were 20, and how old was he?
He was 21.
21.
We're the same age.
Your children,
well, see, before he was at another high school, and he came to my high school, and I was dating a football player. We dated all through high school, off and on, And then every time a new girl would come to the house, a football player had to deal with a new girl. Yeah. So when my first husband came to the school, our high school ring had no stones in it, and he came from a high school, and he had his stone because he was a junior then too, and so I said, oh, he's cute. Let me go interview him, So that's how we got the stone in the ring. So we always have all of our reunions. They always bring that up, how we got the stone in the ring.
Because after you found out about that stone, then you guys wanted a stone in your ring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So now your kids are out of the house. You get remarried. Are you still living in Hampton?
Yes.
And
we moved into his house.
And so your second husband, what was his name?
Frank
Read.
He trained the astronauts.
He trained the astronauts. Tell me about that.
At Langley Field. I met some of them, and they had it's called a gantry. I don't know if you've seen it when you've been in Hampton or not, but it's a big gantry where they train the astronauts.
They'd use the gantry that they build the ships with? Well,
no, they got up there, and then they had down on the bottom was like, I guess, Earth or whatever.
They're pretending.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Are they jumping off of there, like into the water? Like, is that
no, it's just on the land thing.
Oh, on the land thing.
In fact, I've got a helmet that he had when he was on top of the gantry because they had to wear helmets up there.
So what's he training them to do? What do you remember? What he was...
Well,
this is in the early 60s before the moon landing.
Yeah, before the moon landing. He was going to invent the couch that the astronauts went on. Okay,
the couch
that they sat on. In the space capsule.
the couch on the capsule coming back down.
Well, they called it a couch in the capsule. What they sat in.
Okay, so
their seat.
Their seat.
Yeah.
Their seat. These are the seats that they're riding up into space in?
Yeah.
So they're strapped into the couch.
Yeah. So anyway, they had a monkey, the first one. And I forgot, well, the poor monkey died, but they never tell. I can't even think of the name of the monkey now. But anyway, he was at this big meeting, and they were trying to figure out about this couch, and they had a pig, and the pig kept dying.
It kept dying on Earth, or when they put him in space?
When on the couch, when they laid him back, when he was laying back, and somebody up in the galley yelled, "If you put a pig on his back, he'll die." So that's when they changed.
solved it.
Yeah, and he's when he retired, they gave him made a little thing of a space of the couch out of plastic, put together. So I still got that.
But it doesn't have a pig on it. No. It's just a couch.
It's just a couch.
But the couch is symbolic.
It's a little plastic thing, the model of the couch.
But it's symbolic of this time when they were trying to figure out how do you best hold a human when they're going into space.
Yep.
Was he a rocket scientist or
aeronautical engineer?
He was an aeronautical engineer. Got it. I have a buddy whose dad was an aeronautical engineer, and when we were kids, he used to walk around with a T-shirt, and the T-shirt said, "I am a rocket scientist."
I have a flashlight that Ed White had. I have his flashlight.
You have all kinds of stuff from NASA.
Ed White?
Ed White was one of the astronauts.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave you a flashlight.
Well, Frank, my husband, gave me. He gave it to him, and then he gave it to me. I still got it.
Okay, but when you guys got married, are all the kids out of the house at this point? Mm-hmm. So now you're empty nesters, and you're living in Hampton. And what kind of things did you guys like to do?
Well, he was active in the Lions Club. I was active in Junior Women's Club.
What club was that?
He was in Hampton Lions Club.
Lions Club. What did you say yours is?
Mine, and I was in the with Junior Women's Club.
Junior Women's Club.
I was president. Yeah.
President of the Junior Women's Club. Mm. What kind of things does the Junior Women's Club do?
Well, back then we did all kinds of things. I'm trying to think of some of the things we did. It was a federation. I don't really remember.
Because you're in your 30s.
We did.
Right? You're in your 30s at this point.
We did.
Because when you're born in 34, that means when you're 29, we walk on the moon.
Okay.
Right? And Frank is 16 years older. Mm-hmm. So Frank's 45. Frank's 45 and you're 29 when the astronauts walk on.
No, it was later than that.
It was?
Yeah. See, we were married in 81.
Oh, well, okay. So the astronauts walked in 63.
Yeah, somewhere. Well,
right?
Something happened in 69. Was that when the capsule, that first one blew up?
Maybe well.
It was after, yeah.
We have to go back and look at that.
It was after we were married. Because I remember.
JFK was killed in 63. Did we walk on? I thought we walked on the moon before JFK died. Is that not right?
I don't know. I don't remember.
We need to go look that up. So, because in the 80s, they would have been moving on to
what was it?
Like
81, they had been at space.
Absolutely, they've been in space for decades.
Yeah, because now
we're into like the Challenger years. Like everything is 86.
Well, I guess was the Challenger the first one to blow up?
That was the one to blow up. So I think 86.
Because I remember the television. He was retired, but he called a friend and he said, "I know exactly what happened." And I don't remember what the seal.
There's an O-ring seal.
The O-ring, and he said, "Yep, that's what it was."
And he knew what it was right away. Like he said, "No, the only way that happens is if this happens." Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. But he would have been much older at the time. By the 80s, let's see, in 80.
All right, 81. He was born in 19.
You were 50. You were probably 50 when the Challenger blew up. About 50, 52. Right? Because you're born in 34.
Yeah.
So 84 is 50 years.
Yeah.
So I think it was 86 that the Challenger blew up. Well, might have been 87. But I think it was 86.
We were married in 81.
Right. So you would have been married for 5 years at this point. You would have been about 52 and he would have been about 68. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm. Probably.
And he was retired. Yeah. Yeah. January. Actually, what is today? It's almost.
I know. It's almost that.
It's almost
21st
the anniversary.
today,
January 28th, 1986 is the year that the Challenger exploded on.
Oh,
okay.
As it was trying to go into space. So yeah. So 86. So you were 52, I believe.
52. Yeah. Because I remember when I turned 55.
Yeah. Is that right? 52. Wait, hold on. So 50. Yeah. In 1984, you would have been 50. Yeah. So 1986. You're 52. Okay, so at 52 years old, your kids now are grown. When were your first grandkids born? How old were you?
Let's see. Well,
Robbie was the first one.
Robbie was first grandchild. I wasn't married then. I mean, I was divorced then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when was that? He's 44, 45 now.
Mm-hmm.
You figure up the math.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So 45. He would have been born in the late 70s.
I was just telling your dad this morning, he asked me how I got the name of Nanny. And I said, because they lived with me, and his dad was over in Korea at that time. And my daughter and Robbie stayed with me. And I came home from work one day. I was trying to give this, I wanted to say grandma, or grandmother. He was in a little walker, and he comes across the floor going, nah, 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 nah. So that's how I became Nanny.
Very common for the first grandchild to get to name the grandmother. And then all the rest of us inherit that.
Right.
My grandmother, her name was Manny.
Well, that's what your dad was telling me.
Yeah. And I think that was similar. My cousin Susan, who's 10 years older than me, she was the firstborn grandchild. I was the secondborn, but it's 10 years later. And, I just inherited the name Manny from her. But I think similarly, she was trying to say grandma, and somehow it was coming out Manny.
Well, we lived by Kickotan High School, and Robbie, the first grandson, he played ball over there. And my son played ball over there. Her dad played baseball. And the baseball team would come over to our yard and get water because they didn't have anything there then. So to get water, they'd come over and get the hose. So I was nanny to the baseball team. And then when Robbie was playing ball over there, and he played Little League, I was nanny to them. Then my granddaughter was in the band. I'm nanny to them. I'm nanny to everybody.
But your friends still call you Marlene.
Oh, yeah.
Because as we become grandparents, we don't start calling each other's grandparent name.
No.
But it's probably fun for the grandparents to all share their grandparent name with each other to find out, what's your grandparent name?
Yeah. Because, my daughter, her grandchildren, their grandmother was Nanny. Okay, and I'm Nanny. So they wanted me to be old Nanny. And I said, no, I'm the original Nanny. So when they called her Nanny, she said, no. So now she's no. She was no to them. She was no to them.
That's a good one. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about spirituality. How would you tell your own story of spirituality and how that's evolved? Like when you think of your spirituality in your childhood versus your high school years.
I love telling this story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We lived off the base then. It was after the war. I guess I was maybe 12. And the bus stop was right there. I'd get on the bus and go out to the chapel. And on Sunday mornings, they would have Sunday school, and I would help in the Sunday school while they were having the Catholic service or whatever. And then I would go to the chapel. And then as I
By yourself?
Yeah.
Just you wanted to. You were 12.
Yeah, 12. So then when it was a little bit, when I got to junior high school, they had a youth group, and so I went to the chapel where the youth group was, and we sang in the choir and all that. And then my first marriage, my father-in-law, he was very active in church. So,
is this a Catholic church?
No, this is Protestant.
Protestant church.
This was at the base there was no denomination, except there was Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my father-in-law was Presbyterian, so we got married in that church, and then I became active in that church.
Your McElhaney
yes.
father-in-law was Presbyterian? Was he Scottish?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Scotch-Irish.
Well, he's got it. So
yeah.
the Scots are the Presbyterians, and the Irish are generally Catholic.
Oh, yeah,
so,
that's true.
Okay, so McElhaney is more Scotch than Irish. I mean, ethnically it's Scotch-Irish, but culturally, clearly it's more Scot if they're Presbyterian.
Right.
And so he was a Presbyterian minister?
No, he was just active in church. He was
active
a deacon and all. Yeah, and then he made me head of the nursery department, and then I started teaching Sunday school, and then when I later on we built the house where on that private lane near my father-in-law and mother-in-law, there was there was no church, no high school, nothing, and so when they built that, I joined the Presbyterian church, and that's when I started teaching Sunday
That's
school.
the one behind your house now?
Yeah, the one there.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't there when we built. There was nothing there, no high school.
Was that his land, that McElhaney Lane, and everyone just kind of built their houses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How many people build houses on the lane?
Well, see, there's two on the front that face the main road, and then there's three. There's myself, two of us on one side, and then my neighbor across the street. So there's really three of us on the lane. The other two face the road, Vauxhall Road.
But this is your father-in-law.
Yes.
And so then your husband, did he grow up in a pretty religious home?
Yeah.
Did he not like that?
He just liked drinking better.
He's like, you don't have any sense of like what the demons were that drove him to drink to excess.
No,
you have no sense of like why he was angry or why he was disappointed or why he was depressed or why he was angry at God or no, you have no idea.
I mean, he went to church. We went to church together.
Sure, but for him it was routine.
Yeah, right. I mean, we even did devotionals in the morning with the children and stuff like that. I don't know what happened.
But so on this McElhaney Lane, the father-in-law he has his own house,
right.
And then you guys build a house, and then who else is on the street?
Well, next door, the house that we built, my daughter is there now, or they lived there then. Mm-hmm. He's still there. Mm-hmm. Then I moved in. When I married Frank, I moved in his house next door. Mm-hmm. Then my neighbors across the street built the house. They're like my adopted children. They're so good to me.
Mm-hmm. And we grew up with all their kids.
Yeah.
Going over to Nanny's house for Easter egg hunts, and it was like kind of like a little family commune.
We'd have a big piñata and invite all the neighborhood kids.
Nanny had some epic parties,
and all your dad's friends, children, and everybody came. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny because some of the stories I've heard, I'm actually a little surprised to find out that McElhaney isn't Irish. Because some of the parties sounded like more big Irish family parties, and less Scottish. But here I am trying to process all that. Where all the Presbyterianism and
we had parties all the time. We had theme parties. Mm-hmm. One year we had a Mexican party, and we rented a mule.
So maybe his drinking had more to do with just loving to party.
This was his second husband.
Oh, his second husband. No. I was still on the McElhaney.
No, he did his parties with other people.
God. Yeah. Okay. This is a bar scene parties.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let's stay on spirituality a little bit. So so you're going to church, you're teaching. Going to church doesn't necessarily have impact on your inner spiritual life. It can be really positive.
Teaching did, and then I just I think being Presbyterian, brought up Presbyterian, going to Presbyterian. Predestination, and I think this is where I started. Look how young I started. So you believe in predestination, Reformed ideas of Presbyterianism. Yeah, and then
so you think there was God just had grabbed you?
Well, when Frank, when we started going out, I said, I told him how important the church was to me and God, and I have a thing that he joined. He was the Presbyterian also, but at another church, and he was in the choir, and he wrote a message on the bulletin, and I've got it in my Bible. When I'm gone, y'all read it.
Okay.
and it says, God, please help me protect Marlene, and all. It's very touching, and so he knew how I felt. And we prayed together. We were at night. He would call me before, and we would read the Bible together. And before the divorce, it was hard times. No money because he wouldn't work. They were going to foreclose in the house, and I can remember one night I was crying. I was sitting on the side of my bed, and they were going to auction off the house at the courthouse, and I was sitting on the side of the bed praying. And I saw this image on my closet door. The next day, my mother called me, and I had an aunt who evidently had a mortgage company. Anyway, I got a second mortgage on that house, and the house was saved. And I know God heard me, and He always hears me. I've had all these miracles happen. I had carotid artery. And it was like 40%. And I was going to the pulmonary doctor. And one day, he kept checking it. One day I go, and he said, it's gone. I said, how'd that happen? He shrugged his shoulders. I went to the car. Thank God, called my daughter, and I said, I've had a miracle. And they don't have to be big miracles. They could be little ones. I mean, I've had things I, fret over, okay, what am I going to do about it? And God he takes care of it. So he's my strength. And I would love, and I want all my great-grandchildren to know this is, I try to instill this in them, about who Jesus is and all that, because now churches there's no children in churches. If they come, their grandparents are bringing them, not their parents.
Is that what you're noticing? Is it that there's a generation gap in churches?
Absolutely, because I would like to take 2 of my grandchildren. They used to go there. That was one reason I went there, because it was a Methodist church, and they don't go anymore. There's the one that's going to be 13. There's none that age. They're all little ones, and most of them come with their grandparents when they come.
When did you start going to? Because when we were growing up, we went to a church called First United Church of Christ, which is where my mom's parents were big in that church, and my grandfather helped build it. So did you start going to that church after mom and dad got married?
Yes.
Okay. You weren't going there before?
No.
Okay.
No.
And that's not a Presbyterian church.
No.
Not a Methodist
But that's
church.
the one we all grew up. The whole family went going to this church.
And I was very active in that. I was a deacon and all, taught Sunday school there. And then I found out how liberal. I just didn't think Christians believed stuff that, didn't believe the Bible. Okay. And I found out a lot of they had a minister that came, and he didn't believe Christ walked on water. All these things. He didn't believe in the virgin birth. Tried to get rid of him. And he was asking questions, one at a meeting, and he asked me, and I said, you lost me on the virgin birth. I just didn't think Christians didn't believe all this stuff, Thought they believed like me. So I left. A bunch of us left. We had a meeting. We left. They had to pay him to get rid of him.
I have a buddy who is a professor, but he was also a pastor at different points in his life. And one time he was interviewing with a church. Now, this was a very conservative church, so it was kind of it wasn't that they were too liberal. They were like fundamentalist on a different level. And so they gave him a series of papers, like their statement of faith to review when he was interviewing. And he came back for another interview, and they said, well, what did you think about our statement of faith? And he said, well, other than the fact that point number 2 would preclude Jesus himself, and point number 6 was condemned as heresy at the Council of Nicaea, I think it's pretty good. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on inside of, really all of Christendom has backwaters, whether it's Protestantism, Orthodoxy, Catholicism. But Protestantism, of the 3, has the most radical nature, because I think today there's like 30,000 Protestant denominations in the world.
See, I think the churches are not practicing what they're preaching.
I think you're probably
they've been
right.
into society, because that was one of the things that the meeting that we talked about when the pastor, I'm not going to say what he said, God's word, society changes. I said, God's word doesn't change. And that's when, that next Monday, I went in there, I said, I'm through, I'm gone.
Yeah. Got it.
And then during the pandemic, when we were going to church, I listened to all these ministers on television, and one was, there are a lot of good people in hell. And I got thinking about that, and I thought, just think about it. There are a lot. Just because you go to church every Sunday and you do this and you do that, if you don't know Jesus as your personal Savior, you're not going to be up there.
I think that's a complicated theological notion, and I'm not the only one. C.S. Lewis really struggled with this question of how could good people end up in hell.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely not black and white on that. It's hard for me to imagine that somebody that God likes, which let's just say that to be a good person, good is only defined as what God likes. So if you're a person that is somebody that God likes, it's hard for me to imagine God letting you waste away.
But what does God say about his Son and Holy Spirit? You got to have, you don't have the Holy Spirit.
I'm hearing so, but
I was like you when I heard that.
Well, the question, I guess, the theological question is: can somebody actually be good if they don't have the Holy Spirit? If they don't have the Holy Spirit, and do you have to know you have the Holy Spirit to have the Holy Spirit? Because I just think of people I know that they're indifferent toward religion, but they're really, really, really good people who seem like they're in tune with the Spirit of God and are living like in a way that looks like the Spirit of God.
Well, we're not here to judge either. So that's
where I kind of come out on that. I come out in the place where theologically, I don't think I want to make that.
We're not supposed to judge.
I think that's probably fair. That's probably the best approach theologically. So every time we get to a place where we're asked theologically to make a harsh judgment that really isn't our perspective to make, then maybe we just punt to God. Right?
I guess so.
So then if we're just punting to God, then it's hard for me to make the statement, there's a lot of good people in hell. I'm open to the possibility that that's the way the world works because I don't know.
We don't know.
Right, because I don't know. So it's not, I'm not saying that they're wrong because I don't know, but I also would never make that statement as like clearly I'm right.
Well, I mean, we don't know what's in a person's heart.
Correct. That's my point.
I mean, they could not even go to church, but they could still know Christ.
Correct. And again, this is like C.S. Lewis explores in his writings this notion that people could know Christ without actually knowing Christ, that they might know Christ.
Know about him, but not know him.
No, the opposite. Like the opposite. They don't know anything about him, but in their hearts, they actually are hearing his voice.
Oh.
Right. So they grow up in a culture that never teaches them anything about Christ, but they're actually in tune with the Spirit of God in a way that they are pleasing to God. Right. I mean, think about like in the Old Testament. I mean, Abraham was a friend of God before there was Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And so this same notion that God continues to speak to people's hearts, even if they don't know the story of the incarnation. Right. Even if they don't know the story of.
But then the New Testament, that's what Christ, this Holy Spirit, that's his gift to us. That's I'm not judging either. I mean, I just know how I feel and how I get through the day. Okay.
I think that's wisdom.
Well, I pray for wisdom, but I don't know. Thank you for saying that.
So, what kind of things, when you think about like the things that you'd want your grandchildren to know, right? Like, let's say that you knew you only had 10 years left to live. And you're like, what do I want my grandkids to take away that I can try to share with them while I'm still alive?
Values.
What kind of values?
Being kind to other people, knowing Christ, being honest, not lying. I was always told if you lied, you steal. That scared me to death. When I worked, people took toilet paper and I never even took a pencil home. When I did, my boss liked a little stub and it had a lot of eraser on it. So that's what I'd take. That was the only thing I ever took home. I never thought about taking toilet paper or even a pen. A lot of people take pens.
Right, just all the little things.
Yeah.
It's all the little things that add up.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, that if you're not even paying attention to your conscience on the little things, that everything starts to get away from you.
And like one of the little great-granddaughters, I always tell her, I love you. I said, you know what? They're the 3 magical words. I love you. And I was telling her not too long ago, I said, well, you were a young little thing and you were sitting in the chair and we were in the kitchen and I turned around and you said, Nanny, I love you so much. I said, do you know how much that means? So I keep I love you. I love you. And if they're waiting for them to say it back, they need to know.
They need to know they're loved.
Yes.
So you want them to know they're loved.
Yes.
What do you think the secrets to happiness are? At 90 years old, like, do you have what are your insights to the secrets of happiness?
My secret was Frank and I, because I think God brought us together. I think it was a marriage made in heaven.
So finding a great partner is one of the keys to happiness.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always said we had a perfect marriage. It was perfect for us. Okay.
Well, I mean, clearly you were very happy.
Absolutely.
And it seems
happiest time of my life.
He seems like he was very happy too.
Yep. His children have told me that.
Right. Okay. So we've got know you're loved. Be careful in who you choose as a marriage partner.
Be supportive of each other.
Be supportive of your marriage partner and your family.
Yeah, don't criticize in front of other people. I mean, I know couples that we had one couple, and he'd have a headache. You don't have a headache, stuff like that.
She'd just negate him.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah,
it's not comfortable to be around people like that either.
Yeah, it's probably not great for their.
I mean, he did everything.
Intimate life either.
He did the sewing, the ironing, did all. Only thing he couldn't cook. One time,
did she criticize him about that?
No. Nope. No, I didn't like ironing.
No. I thought you were talking about somebody else's husband. So you're saying Frank did the sewing and the ironing. He did
He's
very meticulous.
And I came home from work one time and he had made spaghetti. He took my mother's old Good Housekeeping cookbook and made spaghetti, and it was good. But he always helped me. We had parties. He was right there to help me. Christmas, we'd have all the family there and other people. And at Thanksgiving, we'd have soldiers from the air base, friends of my grandson or whatever. And he was always there. He'd peel all those potatoes. Didn't have Bob Evans then.
So then when did Frank pass away? How many years ago?
96.
96.
October 96.
96. So you're only 60-something, early 60s. And he's in his kind of late 70s. And so now you're young. I mean, 60 is the new 40, right? But when you're 60 and you're single, so then
she never.
What's that?
Never dated. Never.
After that, you were done. You'd experienced
I was fulfilled with what I had. I didn't never find anybody else like that, and I wasn't even interested. In fact, when we were having a class reunion, and one of my classmates brought some material over to my house, and I don't want him coming in my house, So I was out in the yard working. I didn't invite him in. I mean, it was just
you just
not interested. And I remember I would take y'all, the girls and all, would say, "Danny, that man's looking at you." Please.
Never interested.
I'm over it.
Do you remember that?
I remember. Nanny, you just kept going. I mean, you kept doing your yard work and taking care of the house, and
still trying to do that.
Did it all. Yeah, you still do.
So then what's the secret? So you lose your great partner, and then what becomes the secret to happiness? You still know you're loved.
Family.
You know God loves you.
Yes. Well, being active and things. I mean, I go into the gym all the time. I'm doing Zumba. I was doing 3 days a week. Now I haven't been for several months because of my hip, but I'm planning. That's my goal.
You're doing Zumba 3-4 times a week at 90.
No, I stopped it to 2.
2 times a week at 90.
But now
I do Zumba 0 times a week.
Well, I'm going to try. My goal is start next week and go back once a week.
So you can get once a week. So a little exercise.
Exercise.
These are the secrets to happiness. A little exercise. You spend a lot of time with family.
Yeah.
How
and
often?
Friends. We play dominoes. I used to play bridge a lot. We were in a bridge group.
Is this mostly all people your own age?
Yes. Yep. Which there's not very many of us left. We just had our last 70th class reunion.
70th high school reunion.
Yes.
How many people were there? Do you remember how many people graduated from your class and how many people were at?
The funny thing is every time we'd have one, we'd say, how many people were in our class? I don't even think it was 300. It was small, it was small classes then.
Yeah, 300. Let's say it was 300.
Yeah. And
how many people do you think came to the reunion, the 70th?
I've worked on the committee ever since we had a committee, period. I would say the last time was probably 50 or 60.
50 or 60 at your 70th high school reunion?
Yeah, people came from all over.
But were those spouses too? Like how many people?
Yes, we invite ex-spouses.
So you think maybe there were 25? You think there were 25 people who graduated in your class at this?
Oh, more than that.
More than that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know.
If 10% of the class was not only still alive, but then came to the reunion.
One of them had already sent his thing in, and he died before the reunion. Another one on our committee, he had a stroke, so he couldn't come. So we're losing them. There's like, you want me to tell the story about the harem?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't know what the story about the harem is, but I want to hear about
you're
it.
going to love it. You never told me this?
No.
Okay. Well, one of my classmates is a funeral director. He has his own funeral home, been in Hampton for years, okay? And
Death is not going out of business.
we went to high school together. And we worked on the committee all these years. And he would always pick up the girls in our area, and we'd go to the reunion meetings together. So his wife named us his harem. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the granddaughters.
This is less interesting than I thought it was.
Oh, it's gonna.
Sorry, I keep going. I'm teasing. I'm joking.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
So one of my granddaughters worked at a funeral home and cemetery, and so of course, in this, I'll call him Bob. His name is Bob. He would go to the cemetery for funerals and stuff. And so she said, "Oh, I met Mr. Smith." And I said, "Well, good. What did he say?" And she said, "Oh, I can't tell you." And she went into this fit. "I can't tell you." I said, "What do you mean you can't tell me?" He said, "You were part of his harem." So that, his wife, we have laughed and laughed about that. And so then that Sunday I go to church, and the pastor says, I said, because she said, and the pastor was there. So Sunday when I went to church, I said, "Oh, I guess you heard about the harem." He said, "I'm not going there." So it's been a real family funny thing. So one day, Bob was coming over. We were getting ready to have a reunion, and my granddaughter was coming too. And I said, "This is going to be hilarious."
One time, Britt and I were having dinner at Warhorse here in Atlanta, and we'd gone for a wine dinner. And about halfway through the wine dinner, one of the ladies that we were sitting next to talking to, she shared with us that she was one of Ted Turner's girlfriends. One of, like she knew. And Ted, I think, has like 5 girlfriends. And she was part of that rotation. And she explained to us like how it worked. How it all worked. And how
contracts,
was on board. And she knew, like, she knows like in months in advance what her weeks are. And it's like a timeshare.
Yeah. Yours wasn't that detailed.
No. I mean, that's what's so funny is because his wife and I, we just laugh about. In fact, she always sends me a birthday card that's got something to do with that. We laugh about it. And then at my birthday party last weekend, she was there, and the harem that's left was there.
Oh, the entire harem was at your birthday party.
Like 3 of us.
Amazing.
So I said, "We got to have a picture of Missy with the harem." Well, did you see her? You should have seen her. Oh, she had a hissy fit. I said, "Come here, you got to have a picture with the harem." And she saw it.
That's funny.
I haven't seen it. Have you seen it, Brittany? That picture?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
I don't know who's in the harem. I don't know who was in the harem. Was it Barbara?
Barbara. And Barbara and I were the original. Sylvia, I got her in.
I feel like Barbara was a wild one.
Yeah. With the
all your
Golden
friends.
Girls, we used to name each other. I was Mark.
Okay, so you just turned 90. What are some of the things you still hope to see happen in your lifetime? For yourself, for society? I mean,
I just hope the world changes, turns around. I mean, I never realized there were so many, they're crazy people. I mean, it's insane. It's like everything's upside down is right. And I wake up every morning, I can't believe this can't be happening, and then it's something worse. Unbelievable.
So your hope is that the world might.
And I pray every night. I know that God has a plan, that I live long enough to see that plan.
Well, that'd be a treat. All right. So we're running out of time.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what. I certainly pray that when I'm 90 years old, my mind's as sharp as yours is. Because
I had my senior moments.
well, that would be to be expected.
But you know what? I found out a lot of people have these senior moments. It's not just old people.
It's the truth.
Young people.
Oh, man.
They got so much on their mind.
So many times I think, God, why am I so bad with names? Why is that name escaping me? And
you know the secret? One of the secrets?
Oh, tell me.
Associate. Like if I'm thinking of a couple and I can think of one's name, I keep saying it over, John, and then it'll come
pops in there.
Yeah, it'll come.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Well, Nanny, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, Ryan, so much.
I'm so glad to be part of your family. You have a wonderful brood.
We're glad to have you in it too. Thank you so much for all you've done.
And Britt, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
My dear sweet. She was the bossy granddaughter.
Was she really?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh.
God, I think it's on a video we have of her. They're getting ready to leave the house. We're all out front. She's telling everybody where to stand. You go behind the tree here. You do this and you do that.
Thank God she got all that out of her system.
Aren't you?
When I was 2.
I say that all the time. I'm like, I don't know how you got to be how you are today, but I'm thankful for all of it. All right, Nanny. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I love you.
Love you too.